Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday, September 13th live stream for studentloanjustice.org. My name is Alan Collins. We are Student Loan Justice. We are the oldest, largest, and pretty much only true citizens group actually fighting to solve this student loan problem. Welcome, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Tonight, we're just going to do an open forum, so if you have any questions or comments, throw them on out. Glad to report that the last time I checked, we had 580 something thousand signatures on our petition calling on the president, whether this one or the next, to cancel all federally owned student loans by executive order. Unlike every other loan cancellation program that we're hearing about, which requires Congress to pass a law and raise taxes so that you can pay for this loan cancellation, our solution is really the only one that will work. The president can cancel these loans without needing congressional approval, without needing congressional appropriation, so in other words, no taxes have to be raised, and perhaps most importantly in the current crisis, without adding to the national debt. This is by far and away the easiest, most expedient, best targeted, and most just and appropriate way to stimulate this economy. You know, this student loan system, certainly the federal student loan system, is failed with a big fat capital F. Now, we have been doing this for 15 years now. We've been featured top story on 60 Minutes, the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, NPR, PBS, Fox News, Vice News, Rolling Stone Magazine, Fast Company, and many other shows that I'm not even thinking about right now. We've broken many stories in the media. In fact, I would say we've broken, in my opinion, the most significant stories in higher education through our research over the years. So suffice it to say, we know a few things about this lending system, and I can tell you with supreme confidence that this is now a failed lending system. These loans have got to be canceled. You know, for the first 15 years of our existence, we were fighting very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. You know, unlike every other loan in this country, student loans have been uniquely and specifically exempted of this constitutional protection. And this is the result. Nearly $2 trillion now outstanding. Federal government owns 85% of all those loans, and those are the loans that we are calling on the president to cancel. The default rate for 2004 students is 40% actually higher. And the class of 2004 was only borrowing a third of what is being borrowed today. You know, even before the coronavirus crisis, 80% of all federal student loan borrowers were either unable to make payments, and that's like most of them, or they were paying and their balance was going up. So this is a failed lending system, folks, and the only meaningful way that these loans are going to be canceled are by executive order, not through Congress. Congress will never raise a tax, $1 or $2 trillion, depending on what plan you're looking at. Take that money and give it to the Department of Education to cancel loans. And even if they did, the Department of Education has proven over the years and decades that they have no desire nor intentions of canceling any loans. So the president can do this tomorrow without Congress, without needing tax appropriation. And think about it, folks. These loans don't need to be paid for. The taxpayers funded these loans already many years ago. They don't need and they shouldn't have to pay twice. So our solution, canceling student loans by executive order, is really the only solution that will work. And right now, we are the only group in existence actually fighting for this. That's going to change. We're getting bigger. As of last week, we've gotten a flurry of media attention, and we will prevail, but hopefully sooner rather than later. Much depends on how hard you and me, but you, everybody in this group, works to spread the word about this petition and this group. Because like it or not, folks, we are the pioneers. We've got 600,000 people involved now, and that's a very good start. But we should have 6 million people, if not 44 million people. The numbers are so on our side, you don't even realize. 55 million people in this country have student loans or are co-signed on them. 80% of them are freaking out about their student loans, whether they admit it publicly or not. That's 44 million people who should be on our side. So we need to find them, and they're everywhere. 1 out of 5 adults has student loans. 4 out of 5 of those are freaking out about them. So these people. Find them. Tell them about this group. Because not only are we, right here, you and me, the tip of the spear, we are the spear. Not only are we the center of the eye of the storm, we are the storm. And I'm not kidding you on that. You have no idea how important you and me are. We. So, hey, we have some comments here. Tina Brown, how are you? I was just served today. I'm being sued for non-payment of my student loans. They wanted $1,200 a month and they wouldn't go any lower. I only make $1,900 a month. I don't know what to do. Well, first of all, Tina, I empathize with your plight. And, you are not alone. I know that doesn't do much for you right now, but as I said, 80% of all student loan borrowers, both federal and private, are being relentlessly harassed in many cases. My best estimate is that even before the coronavirus, 25% or probably even a little higher had already defaulted on their loans. Now, we don't give advice on this group. It kind of sounds like to me, typically it's fairly rare that people get sued for federal student loans, although it certainly does happen. So I don't know what kind of loans you have, whether they are federal or private. I would maybe guess that they are probably private. And if that is the case, there's a little bit of saving grace. First of all student loans are unconstitutionally vicious and predatory, and in my opinion, indefensible. I mean, these are essentially invalid debt instruments because they are unconstitutional. The founders called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution, ahead of the power to declare war, raise an army. They also called for equal protection under the law. So tell me why student loan borrowers are not given the same bankruptcy protections that every other borrower enjoys for every other type of loan. But the one thing I can say that might apply to you, Tina, regarding private loans is that unlike federal student loans, private student loans at least have what's called statutes of limitations. So, and these vary from state to state, but this is a length of time past which, if there has been no activity on your loan, in other words, you have not made any payment, not agreed to make any payment, and usually it's either 5 or 7 years, depending on the state. But after the 5 or 7 years elapses, the lenders are not allowed to pursue you for that loan. It becomes legally uncollectible. So typically what I have seen is that the private lenders, when the statute of limitations starts getting close, that's when they file lawsuits and they put maximum pressure on you. And, they'd be happy to even get any kind of an agreement from you, because in signing any sort of a repayment agreement, that resets the clock on statutes of limitations. So, yeah. See, this is one of the very confusing parts about student loans that most people don't understand. There are federal loans and there are private loans. Federal loans are either owned directly by the federal government, and that's like 90% of all federal loans today, or they are guaranteed by the federal government. So a private company like Sallie Mae or Nelnet or whoever your lender may be, they can lend you money, but if there's a federal guarantee on that, then they are considered to be federal student loans. And so you would want to check on that, but it's, maybe it sounds to me like those are, if you say they're federal, then they probably are federal. And in that case, statute of limitations simply don't exist. You guys have no idea. Federal student loans are so freaking predatory. Not only have they been stripped of bankruptcy protections, they've been stripped of statutes of limitations. Every other loan in this country has statutes of limitations. And so, Tina, you're in a tough spot, and I empathize with your plight. It's a tough spot to be in, and if we had any good advice to give, I would take that advice myself. I have student loans like everybody else, federal student loans, but there simply is no good advice because the bad guys, and that includes the Department of Education, unfortunately, they really kind of don't need to break the law because they have already bought the law. And until we see a vigorous constitutional challenge to these laws, which I don't see in the foreseeable future, we're going to be on our own. I empathize with your plight, Tina. The good news is, as I said, you aren't alone. This is a failed lending system. There's no two ways about it. The entire lending system is vanishing into a mist of illegitimacy as we speak. But just to put a final thought on that, Tina, I would still check and get to the bottom exactly of who owns your loans and whether there is indeed a federal guarantee on the loans or not. If there is not, if these are private loans, truly private loans, not just federally made, or privately made but federally guaranteed, in which case you're screwed. If they are truly private loans, then at least there is the statute of limitations that you need to research in your state. So there may be a little hope for you. But assuming there is not, the best advice I can give anyone who's being pursued by collection companies, by guarantors, even in court, is do what you need to do, protect your assets, etc. But help us fight. We need your help. And even just spending 15 minutes a day spreading the word about our petition, telling everybody about this group, that will help tremendously. We are on a path to see all federal loans canceled. And by the way, we are also pushing both of the presidential candidates and Congress to return standard bankruptcy protections to all of the loans that the president cannot cancel directly by executive order. So this lending system is going away, folks, but unfortunately there could be a good outcome or there could be a bad outcome. The bad outcome is maybe what Tina is maybe living a little bit, where the student loan swamp, the bad people, the lenders, the guarantors, the collection companies, the Department of Education, the unelected bureaucrats, all these people in the swamp creatures in and around the Department of Education, they dig in their heels and they start suing people en masse. Even in the state of Texas, as of 5 years ago, they were starting to arrest people on account of their defaulted federal student loans. So we don't want any of that nonsense, folks. This is America. We are supposedly a free country. We will not be conquered and enslaved by this debt. The numbers are on our side, not the lender's side. They may have legally some bark and some bite. We've got the numbers on our side, and we could shut this stupid lending program down tomorrow by popular consent if we had to. And make no mistake, folks, right now, nobody almost is paying on their student loans. And if you think that whenever this payment moratorium lifts, that many or maybe even any people are going to happily resume paying on their student loans, certainly on their federal student loans, you're wrong. The student loan program it's done. It's finished. It's over the cliff. But again, we need to fight. We need to stick up for ourselves in a strong way, and make sure that we get that good outcome rather than the bad outcome. Over 15 years of fighting this battle very moderately just for the return of bankruptcy protections, we have found that our opposition up to this point has been very strong. Now, this is a small number of people, well connected, and they had run of the foxes had run of the hen house, and that is up to and including the current presidential administration. But folks, we are seeing cracks all over in many different places around and through both the federal lending program and I would say the private lending program as well. In many ways, they're inextricably intertwined in that both private student loans and federal student loans are uniquely exempted in a very sick and twisted and cruel way from bankruptcy protections. So yeah, folks, we have to fight. Don't lose heart. We are in the great majority. My best estimate is that of all people walking around right now with student loans, something like 80, if not maybe even 85 or 90%, depending on how bad this economy gets, they're going to be defaulting on their loans in the next few years. But we want to get rid of this lending program, in at least all federal student loans, and get bankruptcy returned to the loans that remain, so that's private loans, the older style FFELP loans, etc. We want to get these gone by Election Day, and there is a very realistic chance that that might happen. Because of the 44 million people out there who are freaking out about their student loans, they vote. In fact, they vote in far higher percentages than the average citizen. So 44 million people is enough, nearly, to elect a president outright. Think about all the different issues out there. Gun control, immigration, the wall, healthcare. You name the issue that we hear the candidates talk about in their stump speeches. And I will show you an issue around which the battle lines have been clearly drawn. The partisan lines are very clear, and people generally know which side of that line they fall into. But with student loans, it is the Wild West. Politically, this is the biggest voter bonanza that we have ever seen, certainly in my lifetime. There is no other issue around which neither party has managed to wrap their arms. The politicians really, they don't know how to deal with this issue. It's a gigantic $2 trillion failed lending system. And up to this point, everybody in Congress and the president has been very afraid of this issue. But when you have 44 million voters on the line, that really is a huge incentive to do something meaningful. Now, 4 years ago, we had no one to vote for. Hillary Clinton had essentially nothing for the 44 million people out there with student loans. Donald Trump had nothing. This time around, Joe Biden at least has cracked the ice. He is mouthing the words student loan cancellation, and also on his agenda in writing, he says that he will fight for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. So that has cracked the egg. It has cracked the ice. And that is very significant. Now, between you and me, Joe Biden, his plan is not trustworthy at all. But even him mouthing those words is enough to sway a large number of those 44 million people who are freaking out about their student loans, to his side in the election. There's a lot of very desperate people out there with student loans, and they will grasp at a straw, if it even halfway sounds good. People like me who've been living and breathing this issue can read between the lines and see that Joe Biden's plan is, quite frankly, crap. But I think as people tune into this race and start looking at the nitty-gritty of the issues, a huge, and assuming Donald Trump does nothing, a huge number of those 44 million people, most of them, by the way, are politically either independent or Republican, believe it or not. 40% of us student loan borrowers identify as being politically independent, so that means we're up for grabs. Another, I think, between 30 and 35% are Democrats or Democratic. and around 25% identify as being Republicans. So, yeah, the majority of these borrowers are either independent or Republican. So, Joe Biden could I frankly, all things being equal, I don't see, and comparing this election to last election, I don't see that there's any way Donald Trump can win this election right now, here today, if he does nothing on student loans. So I'm telling you folks, between now and November 3rd, if you were ever going to get your hands dirty and do the real work necessary to put this issue in play with both of the presidential candidates, now would be exactly that time. We could create a back and forth between the two camps so that by election day, these loans theoretically could be canceled. And I'm not kidding you. I have it on very good word. In fact, I have it firsthand knowledge. I'm not going to say any more than that the very most important decision makers within the Biden presidential campaign know full well what we are asking him to do. They are considering very carefully our proposal to cancel student loans by executive order. They also are considering very carefully our proposal that in order to get our endorsement, the very minimum that Biden must do is pledge to return bankruptcy protections to federal student loans by executive order. I'm also very happy to report I have not direct information. I have firsthand information. I have it on very good word, in other words, that the innermost circle of the Trump campaign, and I'm not going to mention any names, but you know these names, are also considering this concept of canceling student loans by executive order. From a political standpoint, this is a nuclear bomb that if one or the other of the candidates rolled it out in the right way, that would mean Biden pledging to cancel all federal student loans, or President Trump actually doing it because he's sitting in that seat of power. It's almost a guaranteed victory in the presidential race. And as I said, this is indeed a failed lending system. These loans they're going away. Of the $1.5 trillion in outstanding federal student loan debt, I would be stunned if the government was ultimately able to get back even, $200 billion of that $1.5 trillion. Most of that is just monopoly money in the first place. It's not unpaid principal. It's interest, it's penalties and fees baked into a new consolidated loan or a rehabilitated loan. In other words, it's just fantasy land. It was created out of thin air, never existed, doesn't exist. It's just fake. It's fiat. So the president or the presidential candidate that has the courage and the spine to stand up to big government, to stand up to the swamp, to recognize this nonsense, fantastical, failed lending system for what it is, and either make that executive order or pledge to make that executive order to wipe it away, clear the decks, jubilee, call it what you want, and come up with a better way to finance a college education in this country going forward, which is long overdue. The colleges are charging way too much right now, and there's no good reason for the taxpayers to be paying all that ridiculous money. There is a better way out there, and it starts by ending the current system. It's inevitable. It's just there's no pretty way to say it. The president or the presidential candidate that does that is going to win the election. I mean, there is no other issue where you can swing 20, 25, 30 million, maybe even as many as 40 million votes. So this is enough. We comprise enough voters to turn a landslide loss into a landslide win 44 million voters is a lot, guys. It's Mount Everest. It's just massively huge compared to every other issue in this presidential race. So you have no idea how strong we are. You have no idea how important you are because, as I said, folks, we are the pioneers. We are the pilgrims. And you can't unhear that. You heard it, so it's too late. So you're roped in, I don't want to sound too corny here, but, the nation actually needs you on this. If you have an ounce of patriotism in you, you will join us in fighting. And it's not hard. This week we're asking everybody to send the White House a message telling them basically what I just told you, that the president has got to cancel these loans if he wants to win the election. And also to the Biden campaign saying basically the same thing, that we have got to see a pledge for an executive order to cancel these loans. It may not seem like we are as big as we are now, but I'm telling you folks, we are. We are the only group that is plotting the actual path to actual loan cancellation. Every other loan cancellation proposal out there, whether in the campaigns, whether in Congress, they are doomed to fail. Don't waste your time with those. They will never work. They were never even supposed to work, quite frankly. There's a lot of bad people out there who suck their living off of pimping this problem. And so they say they're fighting for loan cancellation, but they're completely full of it. It's never going to happen. Don't let those people fool you, trick you, demotivate you into inaction. That's exactly what the bad guys want. As I said, our opposition is very happy when you do nothing, and they will go to great lengths to make you think that, hey, yeah, we got it all taken care of. We're going to get your loans canceled. Just whatever. Sign up and hang out at our stupid little thing, and you don't have to do anything. Just watch, and we'll take care of it. Yeah, that's bullshit, guys. The reality is the opposite of that. These are your loans. This is your problem. And sorry if the truth hurts, but the truth is that you've got to help us fight, this group, right now. We are the spear. We are the storm. We are the pioneers. And you owe it to yourself. You owe it to the 44 million other people in this country who have been abused badly, many far, far, far worse than yourself. And we all owe it to the future students out there, the tens or even hundreds of millions of people to follow in our footsteps. The founding fathers are on our side. Our side. John Adams said there are two ways to conquer and enslave a country. One is by the sword. The other is by debt. So the founding fathers, they knew something. You may like them, you may hate them, whatever. The founding fathers knew something about debt. John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, even George Washington, they were up to their eyeballs in debt to British banks and merchants. So this student loan lending scam, this tyrannical lending monstrosity, is precisely what the founding fathers wanted to avoid. So they are on our side. Right now, I think they're probably looking down and saying, how did our citizens get so weak? How did they become so fearful of their government? Government should fear the people. That is when we have liberty. When the people fear the government, that is tyranny. And we are living that, folks, like it or not. This is an historic struggle that we are engaged in here. And I would hope that after everything I've said tonight, you would feel far better about standing up and fighting. This is precisely what the founders would have you do. We are fighting the good fight. And so there is no shame in that at all. I personally, I could not be more, proud or maybe even privileged, as weird as that may sound, to be fighting this fight, because this is history that we're making. And we are on the right side of history. And the bad guys, in their heart of hearts, they know that. So, and by the way, don't feel bad at all about having your loans canceled. The citizens have not changed. This is not a bad borrower problem. This is a bad lending system. Paying any more money into this lending system is only to feed the beast. In my humble opinion, that's a terrible thing to do. If you have an ounce of patriotism, you will not feed this beast. You will help us fight this unconstitutional beast, because much is at stake, not only for you personally, but as I said, for tens or hundreds of millions of people to follow in our footsteps. So I hope that answers your question, Tina. And I hope that everybody out there is starting to clue into the fact that we are unstoppably strong. We have a 44 million citizen muscle. And I would love to be able to flex that. Right now, we've got 600,000 people, and that's a very good start. But I hope that you believe me when I tell you that we here, this group, people on this Facebook group actually is where we do where most of the action is, but also on our petition. We are the eye of the storm. We are the storm. So come on, guys. The onus is on you. This problem will not get solved if you sit there and wait and watch and worry. And if you sit there and feel guilty about your own loans going away, let me just ask you this. Do you think the 43,000 millionaires and billionaires who, in this coronavirus crisis, got a $1.7 million gift in stimulus in the form of a tax cut, do you think they feel guilty about that? I don't think many of them do. Do you think the banks on Wall Street, the investment companies, the hedge funds, etc., do you think they feel guilty about getting, and small businesses even, do you think they feel guilty about getting PPP loans that they don't need to pay back? Do you think they feel guilty about the government snapping up their bonds and treasury notes or whatever the government's doing with all the $1 trillion they've already poured into the economy? No, they don't feel a shred of guilt. And if you do feel, even still, because I understand, we're basically generally good people on this group. So the thought of not paying your loans back, it's just natural to have a little pang of guilt in there somewhere. I get that. And if you do feel that guilt, well, then I urge you, in the strongest of terms, to take the money that you would have used to pay back your loans and do something truly good with it. Put a kid through college for no debt, maybe. But I leave that up to you. The one thing you should not do is pay another dime into this failed lending system. That doesn't help you. It doesn't help the country. And it only ensures the continued conquering and enslavement of the people of this country. Don't do that. So, all right, folks, we're going to hit we hit Joe Biden today. We're going to hit Joe Biden and Donald Trump tomorrow. So keep checking back on this group frequently. Check back on our updates on the petition too, if that's where you like to look. But check back frequently because we really need to roll, guys. Time is getting short. We've got like maybe 5 weeks before people start voting. And we're doing great, by the way. Just in the past week, we've done interviews with like 6 different news stations across the country. We've already been, even before that, we were covered by Fox News, Coast to Coast AM, Minneapolis Public Radio, many other shows. I'm just not thinking about them right now. So we're doing great, but we need to really flex our muscle, dude. I'm not kidding you. 44 million people. Come on, guys. That's like so strong. You have no idea. But it only counts when you sitting there make it count. So make a promise to yourself that for the next 45 or 50 days, you, whatever your name is, you will spend 15 minutes or maybe a half an hour a day pasting the link to our petition in front of as many eyeballs you can think of, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, wherever you can think of, that you will tweet the petition, that you will maybe throw a couple bucks into promoting the petition. So that's where you pay money to change.org. We don't get any of that money. and it helps promote it. We get about a third of our signatures that way, so it does help. That you will contact news organizations, reporters, television shows, from Rush Limbaugh to Rachel Maddow, and tell them to report on this petition. You don't have to be interviewed. You don't have to answer any of the tough questions. We can do all that. We've been sharpening this sword to a razor's edge over the years. We can answer all the tough questions, but you need to at least reach out and contact them and say, hey, there's this petition here, change.org/cancel student loans. You should really report on this petition. You can contact Alan Collins, phone number 202-594-1120, email justice@studentloanjustice.org. He can answer all of your questions. And oh, by the way, we have borrowers all over the country who are willing to be interviewed to put a face to this financial catastrophe. Report on this petition, please. That's what you need to do. So I've just thrown out a few things that you can do, but we've all been to college. We're all at least slightly intelligent. We all have very unique skills, talents, abilities, networks. Think outside the box. Think of something on your own that you can do to help this petition. I'm sure I haven't mentioned everything. I know there's a million things that I haven't mentioned. And this let's all pull together on this. Let us hang together. Let us work together. Treat this as a part-time job, or if you're out of work right now, treat it as a full-time job like I'm doing and have been doing for many years. Put the time in. It will pay off in spades. And in a perfect world, we could get these loans gone by November 3rd. We could get these loans gone by January 20th. It all depends on you. So go for it. You'll find after doing it for a few days, it actually starts getting fun as you start making having little victories, or maybe big victories. Because you never know, guys. Yours could be the well-written email, the phone conversation with the Rush Limbaugh show or the Rachel Maddow show. Yours could be the one that tips that domino that causes the cascade that ultimately results in the cancellation of this debt so that 44 million people can have their financial freedom back. We can get back on our feet financially as a people, as a country, and we can move forward with all of our lives, etc. So, come on, guys. I'm more hopeful now than I've ever been in the 15 years we've been doing this, but please make it happen. And keep us posted as you make accomplishments, because we like to brag about that kind of thing. So, I don't know what more I can say, but good luck, Godspeed, and God bless. I'll be back tomorrow night. Ed will be here on Tuesday. Keep checking back. Peace.